These real-world stories are the perfect sanity check you need to counter the spin, propaganda and downright lies from the electric vehicle evangelists and the net zero zombies. Not only will they ignore all the massive inconveniences and impracticalities of owning an EV, but somehow they'll also manage to convince themselves that they're actually better than combustion cars. Such is the level of delusion inhabiting their tiny brains. In reality, of course, a better product speaks for itself and people will rush to adopt. Just look at movie streaming versus video rental. So all the subsidies, incentives and government spin are really just a tacit admission that it's an inferior product that needs to be pushed. But a story like this, where some journalists attempt to drive a Tesla across Europe and compare it to a regular diesel car, are just gold, because it demolishes in an instant the flimsy arguments of the EV zealots and the net zero nutcases. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. If you'd like to support this channel and display your anti-EV credentials to your Tesla-owning neighbours at the same time, why not buy some awesome MGUY merchandise, like this mug, this baseball cap, or this t-shirt. Each high-quality item sports the MGUY No EV sign, and they're all made to order, perfect for irritating the hell out of your local EV zealots. Visit store.mguy.tv or click the link in the description to check out the full range of products. And of course, you can always just buy me a coffee. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. At the risk of sounding like a cracked record, I do concede that battery electric vehicles have a very narrow use case, like on a golf course or for delivering milk, for example, but also for short journeys around busy cities, provided if you have the luxury of off-street parking where you can charge overnight. But that is a tiny proportion of the general population, and so the idea that you can force everyone to drive these things is utterly bonkers. It's the kind of thing that could only have been dreamt up by the likes of Chris Bowen and Ed Miliband, career politicians who consider themselves part of the elite and who've never had to live in the real world for more than a few awkward moments when they're forced to shake hands with the great unwashed. Real people have to make long journeys and tow heavy loads and don't have off-street charging. And they don't have time to wait an hour every few hundred kilometres for the damn thing to charge up. And don't even think about a road trip, as these hapless journalists discovered as they tried to do just that across Europe in an EV. After driving 2,500 kilometres in an electric car, they reached an irrefutable conclusion: diesel is still king of the road. When a group of Spanish journalists embarked on a 2,500 kilometre journey across Europe, their mission seemed clear: test the viability of electric cars on long-distance trips. But after their trek from Berlin to Madrid, the team returned with an unexpected conclusion. The future of electric cars, it seems, is not quite ready to dethrone traditional vehicles for those in search of a cost-effective and practical option on the road. The journey began in Berlin, where the group toured Tesla's Gigafactory. From there, they set out in two Tesla models, the Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive and the Model 3 Highland, both with long-range versions designed for extended travel. The goal was to assess how these electric vehicles stacked up against their diesel counterparts, particularly for long trips. The team's route would take them through several European countries, ultimately ending in Madrid, offering ample opportunity to compare the costs and practicality of electric versus diesel. The journalists' experiment was straightforward: drive the electric cars the same distance as a typical long-distance road trip, while stopping every 200 to 300 kilometres for recharging. The trip allowed the team to experience firsthand the potential challenges of recharging an electric vehicle in real-world conditions. They primarily used Tesla's supercharger network, but also explored other public charging stations. As they went from one stop to the next, they were constantly evaluating the time spent charging and the cost of electricity at each stop. Despite the reliability of Tesla's superchargers, which provided a fast and efficient recharging experience, the team found themselves in frequent discussion over the challenges electric car users face. One major factor they couldn't ignore, the time spent waiting for the vehicles to recharge, was often far longer than the time it would take to fill up a diesel car at a fuel station. This was particularly evident as they navigated through areas where charging stations were sparse or less efficient. Well, naturally, because this is the inevitable result of the charging conundrum. You want to charge in half the time, you need double the electrical power to do so. So the speed of your charging may be dependent on the state of the grid in that area or the number of other cars trying to charge at the same time, both things that are wholly out of your control. And not only that, it actually cost more. When the journey came to an end, the team sat down to crunch the numbers. According to data from the European Union's official fuel price reports, the costs associated with recharging the Teslas were significantly higher than refueling a diesel vehicle. Over the course of 2,500 kilometres, recharging the electric vehicles cost them €53.62 more than if they'd fueled a comparable diesel car. This cost discrepancy grew even more when comparing the electric vehicles to a gasoline car, with the electric vehicles' total fuel cost exceeding the gasoline vehicles by €136.61. The study underscored a stark reality for electric car enthusiasts. While electric vehicles are often advertised as more affordable to fuel, long-distance trips could incur unexpected costs, particularly if fast-charging options like Tesla's superchargers are used. Well, this isn't surprising for the same reason. If you want fast charging, you need two things. One, very expensive infrastructure, and two, very expensive electricity. And who ends up paying for this? The poor EV users who have to pay higher prices for faster charging. It would be like turning up at a fuel station and being told that you can fill up your tank with diesel in 5 minutes, but it will cost you $100. But if you're prepared to fill up slowly, just dribbling the fuel in so it takes an hour, it will only cost you $50. Ridiculous, as the article explains. While the cost of recharging was a concern, the type of charging infrastructure also played a significant role in the overall experience. Superchargers, known for their speed, are an expensive option. The journalists realized that opting for slower charging stations could reduce the overall cost of the trip, but it would also mean adding more time to the journey. The infrastructure of charging stations across Europe remains a work in progress. While fast charging options are becoming more widespread, they often come at a premium. This challenge becomes particularly apparent when travelling across countries with varying electricity prices. The team's findings suggested that for drivers to get the best value out of their electric vehicles, they may need to carefully strategize their charging stops, balancing speed, cost, and convenience. Well, what an absolute bore to have to worry about all that nonsense every time you hit the road. This just goes to show how delusional you have to be to think that EVs are actually an improvement over regular cars and not just a pale imitation. And the article's conclusion is brutal and to the point. Though electric vehicles may offer lower maintenance costs and environmental benefits in the long run, the immediate benefits of a diesel vehicle, speed and convenience, were clear. The team noted that for long-distance travel, diesel vehicles are likely to remain the preferred choice for most drivers in the foreseeable future, at least until the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles becomes more widespread and efficient. And that isn't going to happen anytime soon, especially when the one commodity that EVs need to survive, electricity, is being made less reliable and more expensive due to insane net zero policies which are destroying the grid. All of this might, just might, be possible if we had a glut of electricity thanks to coal, gas and nuclear generation. But combine it with windmills and solar panels and you can simply forget it. And that's without even touching on the myriad other problems with transitioning to EVs, like mineral and metal availability, which will soon become a bottleneck. None of this will affect the net zero zombies making these decisions. They think they can just command the world to switch to EVs, and it will just happen by magic. Stories like these, real-world stories describing the reality of EVs, are what is needed to counter the rose-tinted propaganda and lies spread by the evangelists. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any tips or stories, go there. If you'd like to watch another video, go there. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, go there. And please subscribe to the channel.